significantly lower pressure. The warrior is not rush, it is control, and the mage almost always has free reign to parcel out their burst for maximum efficiency.
And you can just tell from looking at Alan's face there, that is just true chaotic neutral energy from him screaming from that picture. As Bankyugi on the warrior to get things started, and we've been talking mostly about Alan's decks, but on the control warrior that Bankyugi is going for here, despite what you may think, or what I may have originally thought against Mage, where similarly to Rogue, you can clear all their stuff, gain a whole bunch of armor, I actually think this is a pretty bad matchup for the control warrior. Very difficult to outlast all the damage that Mage has access to, especially as your Rancor doesn't gain much armor, your Bulwark isn't going to protect you from much because of the Mask of Cthulhu dealing individual instances of damage. It can be a very, very tough matchup.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. For Alan, no flow in the opener, but he does have access to turn 3 Lunacy if he wants it. And with none of the discounts in play yet and none of the 7-cost spells drawn, there is an argument to playing Lunacy in this matchup, because while it's not your usual game plan to get on board, if you're able to do it as quickly and for as cheaply as Lunacy can get you, that's still pretty valid to approach a way to beat any deck, not just Control Warrior. Well, for Bankyugi, not the greatest opening hand, but he does have Outrider's Axe at some point to be able to draw a card, which is the most important thing. Oh, this is the big forking paths for Alan now, though.
Oh, what, you think he should go Deck of Lunacy and then Incanter's Flow? Okay, yeah. Fair enough. He agrees. I mean, he hasn't drawn any of his 7-mana spells, which is where the difference really creeps in as to whether you want Librams of Hope or the Grand Slams and Survival of the Fittest. And you know what? I respect it. If you got it in your starting hand, let's go. Deck of Lunacy time. I think in most instances here, yeah, this can get the job done before Warrior finds enough removal.
Bankyugi with the appropriate reaction there. I think for Alan, if you are playing Lunacy, it's always pre-flow, right? The Librams of Hope, not very good in this matchup. They got Coerced, they got Shield Slammed or something like that. Even Bleedstorm, if it's the only thing on board. You're looking for the Kodos, you're looking for minion buff and immediate card draw. Of course, this is going to be the flow turn. But with that much card draw, I don't hate just slamming the Cram Session for 1 as well.
Yeah, not ridiculous. Like the Thalnos, you probably want to save that for if you ever discover Burn later on. Like you can still obviously get Mask of Cthulhu, Consecrations, Fireballs, things like that as well.
Consecration is Burn. Yeah, I guess.
It is! I see it all the time.
And because it costs 1, it's just better than Rune Orb in that sense?
Exactly, Gia. Now you're getting it.
Oh, wow.
Okay. For mana.
Ramp. That is very interesting. I did not consider this because Alan's deck is quite cheap to begin with, and you can still sometimes run out of card draw. Niche, but possible. But at the very least, he has like 4 draws, right? If the Thalnos goes with a Cram Session. And what this means is that if at any point he top decks in a Grand Slam, it is just playable. So this is probably really good, actually.
Yeah, I like it a lot. He has plenty to work with here and just clearing out hand space as well. Again, just as we always see from Alan, such lateral thinking, never taking things at face value, which sometimes I think leads to plays that you and I disagree with because he does deviate from the expected lines, but it sometimes leads to situations like this. Misses the 50-50 on his 7-mana spell, or 10 mana I guess would be more appropriate, with Survival of the Fittest, because you would much rather than a Grand Slam, obviously. But with Stand Against Darkness into Survival of the Fittest, yeah, that sounds pretty good too.
That's insane. Of course, it's the type of board that Bankyugi will gladly Bladestorm/Brawl, but it's a board that Alan was not meant to have to begin with, right, in a pre-Lunacy world, and he will have refill after it. The question is, does the survival get better, potentially? Because again, there's no minions in the deck. They would have to be generated on board or in hand in order to actually get that value.
Yeah, I mean, the weird thing is that whether they're 1/1s or 5/5s on the board, it's kind of roughly equivalently easy for the Warrior to clear them off, because Brawl, Bladestorm obviously will still deal with it. Barov can deal with it easily. It's the Rancor and the Minefield where things get a little bit more tough. So it may just be expendable performers into survival or stand into survival on the same turn. But it's not ridiculous to just play them out and leave them.
Bankyugi, for Alan, you saw him ping his own Thalnos to deny a minion for Bankyugi to swing into and keep drawing. And Bankyugi has to be considering, is it even worth playing a minion here? Am I just giving Alan something to do if I play Kargath? Might be a little bit too deep down the rabbit hole for me to suggest that complete holding was better, because he does have a faceless target if this sticks. But as it turns out, this initiation becomes pretty insane for Alan, because he can survival the Kargath he gets, and then the other survival procs on the Kargath that shuffles in his deck.
Sure. Yeah, I guess so. And it's pretty... Sorry, go ahead.
Better than that is probably to build a board that's not just a singular minion, so he can go for a hybrid play of like initiation plus stand.
Yeah,
and then
I like that.
If any of that sticks, survival that.
I mean, it's worth mentioning as well that given there's quite a few 5-cost spells in the deck now with one Spring Water left and the Apexis Blast, there's a lot of 8-mana spells that have been, obviously, they've been turned into with Deck of Lunacy, which means you have Jewel of N'Zoth, like resurrecting spell damage is a big thing. You can get Commencement for 7 mana as well. Like, there's benefit to having a big minion in your deck.
Oh yeah, you're right. It would potentially just resurrect the Death Rattle, because the Kargath Prime is part of that pool. Alan is just going for this play, which is max stats on board, because this is a unique board state where Bladestorm doesn't immediately blow everything up, right? Because Bankyugi played a minion. This is also pretty smart. Of course, it's not that great into Brawl, but Brawl often still leaves Alan a minion that is not just dealt with by the weapon.
Yeah, he's got double survival in hand. It's time to start making use of them, in my opinion.
I just feel like it was maybe a niche opportunity to get really good value off the initiation. Although, having said that, maybe later it gets him a Rattlecore. I don't know.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, I guess you're probably looking at devolving it, but maybe there's some way you could go initiation first and then devolve. That's a good point.
That's a really strong win condition. And that's only if Bankyugi is able to deal with this first board. And he can. Brawl. Or Barov.
Yeah. I mean, many ways. It's like whether you want to go Barov Minefield is, I think, the big question here, whether you can make that work. And it does look like he's leaning in that direction. Or shield slamming his own Barov. Again, a few ways you could go about this. But he wants to prioritize card draw as well.
The trade with the Kargath also just to prevent any disaster outcomes. However, this order means that his Barov dies, which is, I guess, not the biggest deal in the world. He's not looking to win on pressure anyway. He's just trying to outlast the many unknown variables that have appeared in Alan's deck and hand.
Ping pass? Did my man just ping pass with expendable performers and survival in hand? I mean, fair enough. Like, he expects it to be cleared, so he wants to get a little bit more value out of it by trading in first before he just rips it.
Yeah. I mean, this was a pretty juicy troublemaker for Bankyugi if it were there. Empty board.
I mean, who knows? I honestly wouldn't be surprised if already he's locked in his game plan to just copy and then delete the Rattlegore with devolving missiles. I think that was a great spot by you.
Yeah.
Or even just a troublemaker, right, would be big as well.
It would be, but if Alan's not taking Kargath, I think his sights are already set on the Rattlegore. Yeah. That's just the very best one. It still has synergy with what you said, the possible Jewel of N'Zoth in Alan's deck and Commencement.
Yeah, Commencement, Idol of Yashaj as well. Like, there's a few ones that get better from having a minion in the deck. Rally, I'm not able to think what it would res other than just a 1/1.
Yeah, Alan hasn't... Oh, the Thalnos? Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Thalnos and a 1/1 from the Stand Against Darkness.
Good, right? I felt like Alan was looking for... Or maybe he's just completely deviated from any card draw game plan. Is he just waiting for Rattlegore?
I mean, honestly... At this point, I kind of want to just sit back and just see what Alan has in store for us, because whatever we can guess, I'm sure he's picked up or considering something way cooler. But this game plan already, I am thoroughly intrigued.
I am intrigued, but also skeptical, because if he just every single turn, he's losing in fatigue.
Yeah.
And does Bankyugi ever like not play a minion because he thinks of that possibility? It is so niche. Like, he has to dump cards at some point, but he doesn't necessarily have to play Rattlegore.
Like, Bankyugi realistically could probably never play a minion and just win.
Right.
Because the amount of removal, on average, I would say stacks up favorably against the amount of pressure that Alan has.
I agree. Also, sorry, I just looked at Bankyugi's list again. He's not running Troublemaker, and there is
okay.
He has the Faceless Manipulator in there to pair with Rattlegore, you'd have to imagine.
So Mask of Cthulhu, again, has value in just throwing down while there's no minions in play. It also has value in saving it until the Bulwark comes down, however, because you might not be able to get burn damage through that otherwise.
Right. It's also just Alan's most dumpable card other than Chaos Nova here, because he's clearly trying to set up a game plan where he forces Bankyugi into playing a minion by not giving Bankyugi any targets to use his removal spells into. So for Bankyugi to not overdraw, it's just so weird that this is turning into an actual fatigue matchup now. He has to play a minion.
It's so weird. It's so weird.
I just haven't seen this pan out ever.
And then, I was gonna bring up Alan's remaining cards, because even though we can't see what they've been transformed into, we can see what their original mana cost were. But I'm not allowed to. The spectator client saying, nope, not going to be dealing with that one.
Okay.
But I think we can see there's still a Mask, a Flame Strike. Oh no, those have already been drawn. Okay, yeah, so I'm just not even going to go off of that.
He played 2 survival, right? So there's...
Yeah.
Or sorry, he's drawn 2, so there's only one more potential originally 10 cost spell left. Okay, Bankyugi gonna let her rip with the Kargath Primes and the Faceless. This is, if he has caught on to this suddenly having transformed into a fatigue game plan, good for Bankyugi because he shuffles more stuff into his deck.
And Alan doesn't want to go with the Devolving Missile, saying, you know what, have your stupid 8-mana 10/10s. They aren't going to be doing anything, because I think this Devolving Missiles is just earmarked for exactly, as you said, that Rattlegore.
I don't know what's happening. If for all this setup, what if Bankyugi just never draws the Rattlegore and then Alan dies before that because Rattlegore's the last card? It will be so sad, because I think Alan has a very specific game plan.
Right.
We might never see come to fruition.
It kind of feels as well like Bankyugi, you have to at least suspect that playing anything big might upset the equilibrium. You don't know what's going to go wrong if you play Rattlegore necessarily, but something could go wrong, and you don't need to tip the scales. Don't rock the boat. You're just winning at the moment, I think.
Yeah, you would think so. Bankyugi is racking his brains, though, for what is the disaster outcome? Did Alan just generate so many burn spells that he is holding them all in hand, waiting to play them all for immediate lethal when he gets like that last piece of burn? It could be something like that from Bankyugi's perspective. He's just not playing Hearthstone right now. Bankyugi is playing just, I don't know.
Yeah.
Just can't play around anything.
I mean, maybe we're going too deep with Alan. He might just be saying these cards aren't good to develop, so he was just waiting for some good development, like he just got off of Cenarian Ward. But the problem is, if you don't play any minions alongside it, it dies to Bladestorm. If you do, it dies to Brawl. There's just no way to effectively play around all of Warrior's removal.
Alan had to blink this turn because he was going to overdraw otherwise, but I do agree, like, because he was actually forced to be the first one to develop, Bankyugi can in turn remove this.
Yeah.
Okay, he doesn't have... Okay, he has to play something to activate the Coerce, to be fair. I don't think he wants to tank the 7, ever. And Alan did buff this out of range, where just Kargath Prime can't deal with it.
I mean, just play your Shield Maiden, that's fine, right? Like, I don't really know what could go too disastrously wrong. Or Kargath, yeah, sure.
Yeah, I think he's just trying to take the armor where he can get it. There might just not be minions from Alan from this point onwards, so I don't mind it whatsoever. Ay, ay, ay.
Yeah, now you wish you had the Kargath. Oh, you have to clear this, right? This has to be Chaos Nova.
It could be. Could be initiation and just give up on the Rattlegore game plan, but I don't see his win condition from that point if it's just that.
Taking it so slow. So interesting to see it played in this way.
It's unlike anything I've encountered in this matchup before, and to be fair, this is probably not what Alan was expecting to go for when he first got the Lunacy. He was just saying, oh sweet, I can get survival of the Grand Slam and win. But he's just whiffed 2 out of 3 on the Grand Slams. However, the Psyche split, super interesting now. Again,
that's 2 Rattlegores now. That's doubling up.
The thing is, he doesn't really need 2. Even 1 is really problematic for Bankyugi.
Yeah.
And if it just doesn't get played, there's no game plan.
Definitely feels that way at the moment.
Oy, oy, oy. Assassinate Ping. And I would die to know what is going on in Bankyugi's head from this point on. Like, having seen this outcome from Alan, Lunacy into ramp, into draw, into do nothing for a million turns, what could possibly be Alan's game plan?
I think Bankyugi at this point probably just like head empty, listening to bops, press hero power every turn, not a care in the world.
It's just so funny that Alan's win condition is for Bankyugi to draw Rattle.
4 mana, do literally nothing. Is this what Deck of Lunacy offered him?
Like, he could have played a bunch of Kargaths in this situation, to be fair, but I don't think that would have gotten either. Like, if he had initiated the first Kargath, for example, we could live in that world where this Idol of Yasharaj could have gotten a 10-10. Could have been buffed by survival, but then Bankyugi has... Okay, finally something, but there's just Brawl in hand. And Bankyugi could have dealt with Kargath Primes, with Coerce, with Shield Slam anyway.
There's no way you can go like Grand Slam and then survival really quickly. So it attacks with buffed attack. You can't do it preemptively because it's a spell. Like, even if this is 12 damage face, that's a scratch.
Just a tiny tickle. Okay, one of them trading is probably just good for Alan, so that Blade Storm isn't an automatic clear. Bankyugi just thinking, is this worth a brawl? Worst case scenario, there's another Grand Slam in Alan's hand. He still does have the other brawl for that, so I think this is fine.
Yeah, it feels very brawl-worthy to me. You can just hero power pass after that. Like, there's not even a need necessarily to actually clear what comes out.
You can also just Vulgin it. There's no minions in Alan.
Sure. Yeah, that's true.
It would also force Alan to overdraw.
Yeah, maybe that was worth.
Well, of course, this is still very solidly winning. No Rattlegore drawn. Oh no, the jewel! Dude, maybe initiation on Kargath was the win condition. All those turns ago, looking back, I don't know.
So, fell... I don't know, expendable into survival and just pray there's no brawl. Like, it's only going to get more likely that the removal is there the later on you go.
It's looking like it's just fell here. Alan is literally only playing cards so he doesn't overdraw what's left in his deck. All he is doing is waiting for Rattlegore.
I just
And
don't
it's
think
still
Bankyugi's
not
going to
there.
play it. Like, even if he draws it, I think he's smart enough to realize that he literally just doesn't have to. He's winning.
Yeah. I mean, if Alan's already in fatigue by that point, then sure. Oh, cute play as well.
Very cute. Very, very cute. He's just gaining 1 billion armor this game. Like, you could just have a hand full of Pyroblast and you're still not getting them.
Okay.
Yeah.
It would force a brawl, right? And then the Kargath is dealt with most of the time if it forces a brawl.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it's ever like Psych Split on the
Prime. Oh,
Kargath. Yeah, and then you can go Devolving, but again, as soon as you go Devolving, maybe they do just slam the Rattlegore at that point. Maybe not.
So it's trade Glowfly Survival is what I'm seeing. Oh, sure, Expendable's just better, right? Because you regenerate the board, and that's the one that you buff.
Yeah, makes sense to me.
Can he engineer a board that is not dead immediately to Blade Storm? No, right? Because you have to trade them all for anything to regenerate.
Deliberately leave one of them alive. Oh no, he trades in there, but then the weapon is out. So yeah, I don't think there was any way to really manipulate it so that it didn't clear with Blade Storm. As Bankyugi, take your pick. Again, you can brawl if you like, but I just like the look of getting this Blade Storm good while it's good. Or the one off the top instead.
That's good while it's good too. Bulwark equipped now. Again, I guess this was the other potential slight fear for Bankyugi was maybe there's a bunch of burn spells in Alan's hand, but that's now checked by the Bulwark as well.
I mean, it would be a very Alan game plan to say, okay, my win condition is my opponent is an idiot and they play the Rattlegore. It would be very on brand. I mean, again, maybe... Oh, okay, I was going to say...
Beasts.
Maybe there's some extra like fatigue or specific spell he was holding out for that I can't quite imagine what it would be. This does delay fatigue for 3 turns because Glowfly's a beast. You can shuffle them back in.
Wait, are they beasts? Sorry.
They are, right?
Why am I questioning this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you think they were trees?
No, I was remembering that Treants aren't a minion type, but they work with Flick because the name is Treant, and then I confused myself, as often happens.
They're honorary trees.
Was he supposed to wait to frenzy Bankyugi's Scorpid? I don't know. That's cringe.
Maybe. Bulk Up does nothing. Coerce is another removal piece.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
So.
Just use it right now. Let's go.
It turns out Bankyugi's deeper in fatigue, but the thing is, he has a gabajillion armor, so it just won't matter.
There has to be no win con, right? Even with Rattlegore literally bottom card.
I can take the hit.
No, the Rattlegore is still sort of a win con because Bankyugi has used a lot of the single target removal. He can't do the thing he did that Alutamu did, against him, which is like put the Rattlegore all the way down to 2 in 1 turn. So it really is just a matter of whether or not he plays it.
Yep. If he plays it, he might lose. If he doesn't, I don't see any way he even conceivably loses.
Agreed. Oh my goodness, imagine it coming down to this. Alan had been setting up for this all game long. So many turns ago. Not initiating a Kargath Prime, even though it did have potential good synergy with things like Idol of Yasharaj and Jewel of N'Zoth, which were, very conceivably generated. He has to hold on to Fireball as well to actually be able to initiate Rattlegore to get it down to the kill.
Just going with the Psych Split now to try and stick something. Yeah, it's time to abort at this point.
Really? You can... If Rattlegore is the win con, don't you just hold on to that for Rattlegore?
you have to try and make them think they need to play it, right? If you just go Glowfly here and they trade off, like, you're literally just dead when they don't even have to play anything. I mean, Bankyugi, again, is not going to fall for this trap. It's a very long and elaborate ruse for Alan, but Bankyugi's too smart for that.
Fair enough. Oh, the rally's just bad for him as well. I guess it's more likely to summon Glowflies than Thalnos at this point, so...
Yeah. And again, to an extent, we're putting words in in Alan's mouth because he has not expressly been keeping this hand for Rattlegore, but I mean, I definitely agree with you that it's the best guess that we currently have as to why he's playing the way he is.
He gonna do it? Oh, so smart.
Nope.
So smart. He just doesn't need it. That's just it. Alan knows for sure that the Rattlegore is in hand and Bankyugi doesn't take the bait, so he is just gonna throw it down. Easily the weirdest Mage versus Control Warrior game I have ever seen.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of it just happened in Alan's brain instead of on the board. I mean, it was a cool line of thinking, for sure. It just didn't pan out because Alan didn't get the necessary pressure to actually force the Rattlegore down early enough. And also, Bankyugi didn't draw it early.
Yeah, I mean, all of that was very fancy. The real question that you have to ask is, should it have been Deck of Lunacy at all? I feel like for Alan, it wasn't an especially disastrous pan out. Like, he got a couple of the dead cards, like Jewel and... the Idol of Yashaj. But to be fair, he had all his 7-mana cards in the deck. Double Survival of the Fittest definitely doesn't help, but he got the token generators to make it a bit more amenable. Like, it was fairly average, I would say, and it didn't even come close.
That's true. I am still very unsure as to what average Lunacy actually looks like, especially if you play it that early. Maybe against Control Warrior, if average means like some minion development, some burn, it's just not good enough, because to be Control Warrior, I think you kind of need to go all the way in either direction. Like enough minions that you outlast both the Brawls and both the Blade Storms, or enough burn, like is in the original Mage deck, to make it such that their armor isn't enough stacked over the course of the game because they don't have the time to get all of it. I was honestly advocating for the Lunacy at the beginning, so obviously I can't criticize Alan, but to me it was really like the initiation not going on the first Kargath and maybe tunneling on having it earmarked for Rattlegore. If that was the game plan, we still have to talk to Alan to figure out what exactly was going through his brain. But it was just such an interesting way to approach the matchup, and it does come down to yet another slow matchup because of that pan out.
Yeah, yet another very, very slow one, and one that could get a little bit interesting with the kind of trump cards that are available to most players. Like, I will say right off the bat, I do think that Alan is in a very good position in this matchup. Having Ticketus, obviously double Ticketus with Yashaj, is the control killer. But there's not really an efficient answer to Rattlegore in this deck with no silence, no transform available. So maybe for Bankyugi, if he goes for that high tempo game plan we've seen very often from the Japanese players with their Control Warrior, he may be able to go aggressive enough to take the win.
Yeah, this is definitely the complete opposite of last game, where Bankyugi will be probably hard mulliganing for the Rattlegore and playing it immediately as soon as he is able, because this Warlock will win in fatigue very hard a lot of the time, and they do have the answers to deal with what little pressure there is from the Warrior, like 2 Shield Maidens. It just takes a cascading disaster to get through those. And then in terms of pressure that the Warlock can put out, as long as the Jiraxxus isn't super far down the bottom, it's literally infinite.
Yeah, exactly. It's just too much value for the Warrior to deal with, even with all their myriad removal spells. I think the main thing, honestly, that might be hurting Bankyugi here is the lack of troublemakers, which can be good in the matchup, of course, especially if you can cheat them out with Vol'jin at the start of the game. I couldn't tell you really whether that's made up for by the fact that he has Faceless Manipulator, because of course that can offer a double Rattlegore game plan, which Warlock really struggles to deal with, even with their, again, myriad removal on their side. So it's going to be tough to predict this one. Still think Alan is in the lead, especially with the very, very adept play he's been demonstrating on his Warlock recently. But Bankyugi, I hope he's going to give us a show and at least make it a little bit difficult for Alan to sail to the win.
Your soul shall be mine.
I would definitely agree on all accounts.
Oh.
I think this Jiraxxus is a straight up keep for Alan, even though it's 9 mana, it's coming down turn 8 because he's on the coin. And I also think this Rattlegore is a straight up keep for Bankyugi because that is the win con.
100%. This is just 9-drop city, I think, for both of these players. It's the win con. Like, the rest of their deck does all the same stuff in the early game. There's a few minions, but it's basically just removal. I wouldn't even hate Outrider's Axe being kept as well, to be honest, just to keep the card draw high.
Yeah, I don't mind that whatsoever. He's never winning in Fatigue, right? Honestly, this keep 9-drop type of game, it's just such a throwback to the Knights of the Frozen Throne meta.
Right.
Keep Jaina, keep Malfurion, he's only 7 cost anyway, and keep Blood Reaver Gul'dan. These are just your best cards in the deck. It's been a while since the meta's been that slow, and of course, we only get to see this because it's LHS, but it's cool to see the other facet of Hearthstone, which is so rare, especially in APAC.
Yeah, I still don't think that Lorinda and I have covered from the Control Mage mirrors back in the day, where it was literally just, okay, can you draw your Jaina? And if not, what was it? The 9-cost card that summons dragons maybe could get the job done instead.
Yeah, Alana.
yeah. Oh, man. We got so good at it. We knew exactly what to look for, but still, my brain is just mush from that time. But we're kind of a little bit back there, as you said, with keeping these powerful late-game Death Knight cards, or hero cards, I suppose, with Jiraxxus, or just the meat of the deck in Rattlegore on the other side.
Rattlegore is pretty much a Death Knight on it.
It's true.
It goes away. I'm
Coil?
looking at the coil, potentially. Yeah, even if he can't immediately maneuver it to get a card draw, I think Alan, as long as he gets his Ticketus corrupted, which means drawing Ticketus in the near future, he's fine. And it turns out he will be able to get immediate value from the coil because of this Warsong Outrider from Bankyugi.
Okay, respectable hand in the mid-game as well from Bankyugi. He's got a lot of his threats for the mid-game. But honestly, not a bad hand from Alan either. Like, Ogremancer being able to come down next turn. Obviously, none of these minions are sticking in a million years for Bankyugi with all the removal.
So deliberately not drawing with Coil here, using the better spell, I would say, to get rid of the Outrider, means that maybe Alan doesn't actually want to draw ever in this matchup. Because it still does come down to fatigue. It kind of matters how early you get Ticketus a lot of the time, because it affects whether you're able to play 2 corrupted Ticketus with the Yashiraj. And if you're guaranteed to do that, then you're fine to draw, but you're not guaranteed to do that. As we saw from Alan's game plan yesterday against Priest, was it? The Ticketus was kind of late, and he was also eventually fatiguing. So he did just take Coil potentially as one mana deal 1 at some point, which can be useful.
Yeah, I would hypothesize it's less about not wanting to draw and just wanting to be mana efficient, because if you're spending all your cards with all your mana every turn, you're more likely to be able to dump them efficiently and then fit in the taps every turn. But again, maybe that's incorrect, as it does look like here, I think we're probably going to be seeing Coil after, Armor Vendor then, try and find that Ticketus, because honestly, it doesn't matter if you draw a bunch of cards to find it. You're never ever losing in fatigue as long as you get it before you're dead.
Bankyugi going to continue along his own draw game plan, get the Scorpid down. It's really turn 9 when things begin in earnest for these two players. And for Alan, looking back on it, if the plan is to go early Jiraxxus, then he does want to draw a lot before that, because he'll be deleting the tap hero power from that point on. And the Malagos definitely helps for that card draw game plan, because we've seen the cool interaction where it picks up the soul fragments, which draw him further cards. For Bankyugi, I have to assume it's one of the removal options. Barricade just doesn't feel like enough, but maybe he's just so far behind in terms of actual threats he can put on board that he takes the Barricade.
I think I actually agree that it is a removal option. My initial instinct was to say Barricade because your hand removes so much as is. But once you hit Rattlegore, I think removal becomes premium. Any way to actually clear off the 6/6s every turn rather than having to hit in with Rattlegore or allowing them to attack into Rattlegore is premium. So I really, really like this pickup of Shield Slam.
Yeah. Long time before the Warlock is able to chip away any of that armor, so it's only going to stack up higher and higher. Alan shuffling in the fragments, making sure that when Malagos comes down, he will not be starved for value even if he has no longer the tap hero power.
Yeah, it's kind of one of the weird benefits of shuffling fragments into your deck, Malagos, is yes, you heal for a bunch, but it means that Malagos also draws minions a bunch of the times as well, because you draw the fragment and the fragment draws a random card from your deck. And so that means, again, more likely to find Ticketus, dumping more hand space as well. So I really like just tempo on the School Spirits there, even if it does basically nothing.
Yeah. Currently 4 fragments in the deck, so if Malagos picks up any one of those, that could convert into a minion drawn, and any one of those minions could be Ticketus, which is very important in this matchup. But first of all, this Rattlegore has to be dealt with.
Yeah, here it is, the ultimate standoff, Jiraxis and Jotaro. Sorry. Rattlegore, not Jotaro and Dio. I was getting my metaphors confused already.
How shall I destroy?
And I think it looks like he's just going to start chewing through it the old-fashioned way. Yes, you can go for Malagos to draw a bunch of cards from your deck, but this has to die at some point, and you may as well do it now before the Faceless Manipulator comes down. From where Alan sat, there could be another one on board next turn, so it's better to make it an 8-8 instead of a 9-9, right?
I think if Faceless comes down, if the Rattlegore is anywhere above like 5-5, he's still losing.
Right.
So I'm more interested in getting something proactive done here. Granted, the Malagos is not entirely proactive because it doesn't allow Alan to fit in the hero power, which he really wants to do every single turn. So if he is going to Cascading, I think it's more to get the hero power down rather than chipping through the Rattlegore.
Yeah, it just makes it a little bit easier to deal with, of course, as well, next turn. And it means that if he goes Malagos and then Spirit Jailer, he won't be overdrawing any cards. Because even if it's unlikely that he overdraws the Ticketus, you want to make sure that it's just no chance at all.
Yep. Definitely agree.
Ooh.
Oh, this draw.
Wow, interesting.
That's so powerful. Is that not just slam it down this turn? It's not dead to just weapon, and if Alan has to face tank it, then you're very happy.
Yeah, it's just... Do you want to attack it in, or do you want to go shield slam as well? Because losing 4 health on it makes it a fair bit easier to clear, but having another shield slam in hand is very useful. It's kind of close.
I think the way that Alan clears this, after having seen Drain Soul, Soul Shear, School Spirits...
True.
He generally uses one of these destroy spells rather than damage spells, right? So I think it's fine to take the trade.
And Bankyugi's one game plan here is just to clear the runway for Rattlegore. As long as he keeps a clear path and it can go face every turn, he is currently still winning this game. Shield Slam to take out the Taunt, most likely.
Yeah, extra Shield Slam
as well.
pickup is actually super relevant because...
Yeah.
I mean, Alan doesn't have infinite health. He can heal back up a lot with the fragments, which is another reason for holding on to the Malagos. Looking at it retroactively, it's definitely a lot better to hold on to that. But even after the heal, if Rattlegore just keeps going face, Alan is in trouble.
Oh, Rattlegore's just so sick. It's such a cool card.
Uh-oh. 2 fragments drawn prior to Malagos. So 4 in the deck currently. Okay.
Okay, still heals for a lot.
2. Militia for 0. Okay, 2 again, but really not great.
Yeah, no Ticketus found. Still without the ability to effectively clear off the Rattlegore as well.
Thank you. He can keep drawing. He can Scorpid Coerce. Puts Alan down to 11.
Still no Faceless, though. Commencement? There is nothing that good actually left. Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, without the Troublemakers, it gets a bit difficult. But even if that pulls a Shield Maiden, I feel like we would have been kind of happy.
Yeah, it could pull Faceless, though, right? And then it's pretty disastrous. I think this is good as, again, just more removal. Keep clearing the board.
This Tamsin is pretty clutch though. He can get double dips on the Drain Soul and the Soul Shear, which then buffs the Militia a little bit further, and he fits in hero power.
That's true. That's very true. And at that point, the Rattlegore, it's still a 6/6, but he's kind of starting to chew through it. It's getting to that point where he may be able to out-heal it.
We've also seen both the Outriders acts from Bankyugi as well. So in terms of reach, it's just the one from Bulwark. So as long as Alan stays like 2 health above whatever the size the Rattlegore is, and there's nothing left on the board, then he should generally be fine. Looks like Alan's going for Militia this turn. To be fair, it is pretty good. This is probably the best it's gonna get because at this point the deck is so thin that you might just be top decking fragments at any given time. And it also corrupts the Cascading Disaster.
Oh, getting through 3 layers here is so huge. A 4/4 Rattlegore, it's close. It's still possible that it could get there, but I think Alan may have crossed the threshold here into just surviving. Only needs Ticketus, and then of course he demolishes the late game.
Bulwark is just Light's Justice here. That's the out, right?
Okay, he's set up lethal.
Unfortunately for Bankyugi, Alan has heal and fragments, but it's as good a chance as any that Bankyugi has. It's obviously a weird-looking play, but that's just how this matchup goes when it is in this situation. Bankyugi has no chance of winning in Fatigue because from his perspective, Ticketus is going to burn 5 cards, possibly 10, given the second one from Yashiraj. And so the superficial lead that he has in Fatigue is simply that.
How shall I destroy you?
Cascading, Tamsin, Drain, Weapon Swing, and the Rattlegore is finally vanquished.
There it is, the second time that Bankyugi has had a Rattlegore completely chewed through in the last 2 weeks of Grandmasters. Alotemu almost doing it in 1 turn, Alan taking a little bit longer to get through it, but the effect is the same. Bankyugi has nada left in this game. No value, no threats. It's pretty much just over now.
There's one remaining source of value in the athletic studies, and that can become 2 if he gets to pair it with the Faceless Manipulator, if he picks up Kargath Prime, maybe?
Right. Yeah, I think the more realistic victory condition, although that is worth considering, is Ticketus needs a turn to be juiced up after it's drawn, right? You need to corrupt it. So if Alan plays a card that costs more than 6, Bankyugi can take that as, okay, you've just gone for the Ticketus play and play Vol'jin and try and pull the Ticketus, but he just lets it rip now, and yeah, it wasn't Ticketus, so that is the game.
Quite reasonable, I think, for Bankyugi to take any chance of just sticking a minion onto the board at this point.
Was that reasonable? Like, if he had Ticketus corrupted, he would have played it 100% on that turn, right? And so, surely, again, you wait for the hint that they have it in hand. They play a card that costs more than Ticketus's cost, and then you go for it, right? I feel like that's a better win condition, because then you are winning in Fatigue. There's nothing left. Alan's deck is almost all Soul Fragments.
That's fair. He could have also immediately killed it with Barrow. Okay.
Again, like, if Alan doesn't play a minion, then that just falls apart. Like, if he just goes Twisting Nether Pass, then you don't have the ability to do that. But even then, you know they didn't have Ticketus in hand at that point, almost certainly.
But I guess we can also just math it out. Like, worst case scenario for Alan, let's say the ticket is at the very bottom of the deck. Even if he just hero powers every turn, is Bankyugi beating that? I know there's only 3 real cards left in Alan's deck, but he's going to heal off of a lot of those.
That's
the
fair.
6/6s stack up, and then there's like even just Yashiraj for not Ticketus for strongmen is quite powerful.
Yeah.
So
And here it
Vol'jin
is.
was a desperation play. And
It was desperation, yeah. And I think, honestly, if Alan had not seen the Vol'jin yet, he would have played this differently. He would have literally just gone Twisting Nether Pass and not even played the hero power, just as the one out for Ticketus to be pulled out by Vol'jin. Now that it's already been played, of course, he can just do whatever he wants. Plays it out here, absolutely correct. Burn the deck. Next turn, you charge, do it again. Game over. Let's go again next time.
I'm almost out of cards.
as is the expected outcome. But to be fair, Bankyugi got very close there. Even if the Rattlegore is not cheated out coming down on turn 9, it is incredibly difficult for Warlock to deal with. Their healing is not infinite. It often depends on drawing fragments. And if Bankyugi had hit the Faceless like anywhere in the top half of his deck, this could have been a very, very different game.
And to be fair, Bankyugi is still kind of winning in fatigue just because of the amount of armor he has. I mean, the Ticketus didn't come back, but it honestly doesn't even really matter because all the cards are gone anyway. And for Bankyugi, if he can clear these boards, is there any chance? Like, there's no real cards left in the deck for Alan.
It's like one board he clears after that, right?
Oh no, wait. The throw was playing the strongman, right? If he hadn't played that, he would have overdrawn these soul fragments and effectively added 4 cards to his deck.
Oh, that's true, but
this is a huge mistake.
He still just wins, right? Like,
I think he's still winning, but that locks out any hope for Bankyugi.
I think we gotta get past the habit of calling any mistake a throw because Alan has not lost this game.
Sorry, if I said throw, I did not mean that. I meant it was a blunder in this mistake.
Yeah.
I don't think it matters, but you know, it was incorrect, I still think.
Sure. Definitely not optimized. Like, Alan will be fatiguing a lot sooner than he could have, but I think the main thing is that he realized there's just no more removal for Bankyugi, right? There's like one Rancor. The rest are cards that are known to him. And so he's free to go as wide on the board as possible, and he will easily offset the huge armor lead Bankyugi has before he dies to fatigue.
It does look that way. Yeah, the Rancor, I think, not quite... well, not able to gain any armor, so not going to be making up for it. Bankyugi throws it down a little closer at the end than I think it could have been. And, I mean, you can just tell, Alan shaking his head, he knows that that was a mistake. I'm not going to rag on him too much because it was just a momentary lack in judgment. But even so, does end up taking the win with the Warlock, outlasting the Rattlegore, which really was the only threat to him in that situation. And so, is able to take the win with the Warlock, the deck that he swept with yesterday. And so we have to immediately look at the counters that Bankyugi has available after the Priest was left up, so Priest is available here, and the Mage was banned from him, so it's Paladin or Priest as the 2 decks left over, neither of which feel great, I've got to be honest.
Yeah, definitely not Priest. That's why Alan is primarily bringing Warlock in the first place. He's just managed to also get a good matchup into these Warriors in the meta, and also whatever N'Zoth Paladins are hanging around there. The Warlock is actually a very sick bring for LHS this week because it has so much sweet potential if you just get rid of like the most aggressive deck on the other side. And because the Priest is such a bad matchup, Bankyugi is defaulting to Libram Paladin, which I don't think is like very good for the Libram Paladin, but definitely not disastrous, right? They can put forth quite a bit of pressure. They're able to milk their buffs with the Libram of Wisdom, and if they can get down the timely Liadrin, they can kind of abuse those windows where if the Warlock has not drawn enough cards or if they're not able to stabilize, they just can't efficiently clear the board and develop.
Yeah, it's a big difference that this is obviously Libram Paladin, as you said, as opposed to N'Zoth. I do think that will make it a bit hard for the Warlock to get a win, just because those repeated Librams of Wisdom can be very, very annoying. But even so, if you can get down an early Ticketus, you can just delete most of their deck before that becomes too much of a concern. But it'll be a close one. I'm interested to see the game plan from Bankyugi, whether it's a super aggressive start, as we can see with this secret Libram Paladin, whether he plays for more of a mid-game push, holding onto the Aldor Truthseeker, and going for the late-game repeated Librams of Hope. A lot of different ways that you can approach this, and you have to know the matchup very well to be able to pick the right one.
Indeed. In terms of mulligans, though, I don't necessarily think Bankyugi will be doing anything different than the normal game plan on the Paladin, because you do just want to hit the curves and the discounts on the Librams in every single matchup. And it turns out that that is not differently played no matter whether your opponent is aggro or control, because playing a big minion and buffing it up is the way to beat both of those matchups, as it turns out, because removal is not unlimited. The cascading disasters for Alan are not always corruptible if you're putting down enormous amounts of pressure in the early game. Enormous is maybe a hyperbole, though, because, again, this is Libram Paladin. It's not aggro. It's not running convictions of the sort. So in terms of reach, Bankyugi has little to work with, and maybe that is what...
To be able to deal with those taunts later on. Alan with an interesting looking hand already that will tell us a lot about the matchup, because as I was saying, Ticketus can be very valuable, but I think it's just a little bit too slow to be keeping in this matchup. There's the threat of falling behind in the early game that I do think means you have to look for slightly more aggressive options, even if Ticketus can be nice to try and delete their late game.
That's right. If anything, I was thinking of maybe holding on to Lucky Soul Hoarder, but again, it's not that great if you're not corrupting it as well. So for Alan, just looking for any of the 1-drops, right? He's got 2 Armor Vendor, 2 Spirit Jailer, definitely much better here, and the Scorpid as well. Oh, but what a great opener for Bankyugi. Attendant and First Day and Libram of Wisdom. And he can take a value from the First Day as well.
Those are sick. Look at all those beasts. Well, there was recently a tweet from the Hearthstone Twitter account saying, what is the best beast? And now we're going to find out. What has Webspinner got available to us? Bloated Python? That'll do. That'll do very nicely.
Just a lot of value and annoyingly shaped minions because of the 4/4 Death Rattle for Alan to have to deal with. Although the best beast is objectively what Sottle answered with. It's the cute hog token.
Just hog. Yeah, I was tempted to reply with the picture of me as Togwaggle, but I think it's a little bit overplayed at this point. Maybe give it a couple weeks before it becomes post-ironic again.
Not even a beast. It's cool.
I am a beast. How dare you?
Oh, I thought
I am going to post it now out of principle.
You were Togwaggle, but okay. Siphon Soul?
Kind of looking at Soul Rend, actually. Like, maybe it's too bad to delete cards from your deck. Yeah, Siphon Soul is nice for Librams of Hope later on.
If it was anything for me, it was between Soul and the Fiendish Circle even. It's not bad against Libram Paladin. Yes, they play player, but it's only 1. Oh, but wow. With second Aldor Attendant found this early, the Librams of Wisdom can keep rolling. If at any point Penflinger is found, it is very powerful as just repeated value.
Yeah, can't go face, obviously, but just to remove minions in the mid-game, clear the runway for your minions to go face is a very big deal as well. And especially as Bankyugi Taylan into Lady Liadrin, no fear of running out of value whatsoever. So for Alan, it's, I think, about trying to lock down the board in his own right, which I guess Ogremantcer can kind of do.
Right, it does shut down the type of hand from Bankyugi that relies on the Libram of Wisdom going off a lot of times. This is not one of those hands, though. He can even play the uncorrupted Libram of Judgment to get rid of this. I think that is just correct. Don't give the Ogremantcer time to be more awkward. And he can Tailland the next turn. Still going to draw him Lady Liadrin, and things are fine from there.
Yeah, it's just the perfect answer here. You can even, like you said, replay the Libram of Wisdom. No fear of running out of value. At least for the moment. There's no silence effects available for Alan, though, so even if it's just like 4 or 5 Librams that are given off of Lady Liadrin, if that's just a 6/6 token that's generated off the hero power every turn, that's like Jiraxxus. He's got of his own at that point, and Alan can't even contend with that.
Now that you put it that way, dang, Libram Paladin's broken, huh? And we did see from Bankyugi a couple turns ago weaving in the hero power when he could have gone Web Spinner and Oh My Yog, and I think that's just correct in this matchup, right? Milk the value where you can get it. He wasn't particularly gaining that much by developing the secret on that board state or the 1/1.
Yeah, I was gonna...
Oh My Yog is better to deny the removal.
It's good. I was going to say that I thought we'd be leading up to Omayog coming down into turn 8, given that that's the very obvious straight-up play-twisting nether turn. But Bankyugi going for it a little bit earlier, which is fine. Okay, I did not think that would draw anything, but that's pretty good.
It is. Is this worth a cascading, though? Like, it's gonna give Bankyugi Lady Liadrin, but Alan's best shot is to somehow gain board control at some point, and later on there might be just more than 3 minions from Bankyugi, so he's gonna play it while he has the chance. Scorpid is potentially gonna be big. If anything, I think Alan needs card draw or just time to tap to get to his Militia. That's the way I see him winning this matchup.
Now we're talking, though. Bankyugi rewarded big for holding off on Lady Liadrin for a turn. Being able to go Libram of Hope, Liadrin, Libram of Hope again. This is where the Warlock is going to start struggling to deal with this board. Realistically, what I'm thinking for Alan, card draw would be nice, yeah, but it's Yashaj, right? He needs to get a big swing turn with the Yashaj, Strongman, play the Cascading Disasters again to swing the board back in his way.
Interesting options.
Ogremancer off of Raised Dead? Is that a thing?
It's unlikely, but not even good enough. Wow, he takes Demonic Study. Honestly, I was looking at that and thinking, Envoy Rustwix is a demon. Remember that, Gia. But Tigatus is also a demon.
Interesting.
That's definitely one of the higher roll outcomes for Alan, but he might have been thinking he's just in that bad of a position that he had to go for it, and could come in very clutch.
Yeah, Alan's getting some serious juice now with this hand. Jiraxis, Strongman, Tigatus, Twisting Nether. He can survive for a while and start to do his enact his own game plan with potentially 3 or even 4 Tigatus available in this game if he finds the Yashaj as well.
Oh, you're right. But he is going to be faced with a lot of pressure. Yes, the Libram of Hope gets eaten by Twisting Nether, but then Bankyugi just windmill slams the Liadrin the other way, you'd have to assume. Yeah, trade the 2/2 into the Scorpid, then he can replay the Libram on the 1/1. He might be just counting how many Librams of Hope he's actually played because he doesn't want... Wisdom. He doesn't want to potentially overdraw the Libram of Hope from Liadrin's regeneration.
I must move quickly.
But I don't think he's anywhere in that territory yet.
Yeah, I guess you just have to plan out, like, what if they play Twisting Nether as the expected outcome here as well? Although we might actually have Omayog in play, right? Or at the very least, the fear of Omayog. So just playing out the Libram of Hope, I absolutely agree with it as well.
The big deal, this Yogg going into turn 8. Looks like the Libram got stuck
Broke
in
the
the Nether.
Yeah.
Right, it's not Oh My Yogg. It is Reckoning and Galloping then.
Yeah.
Oh, are we just going to have to see this Libram wisdom the whole game? Okay.
There we go. Big draw with Aldor Tree Seeker as well, though, just to cheapen the Libram of Hope yet again next turn, if that is to be the play.
I think this Liadrin's good enough. Just keep the pressure rolling. Don't get swung back the other way by like a strongman turn. We saw Bankyugi hold on to this web spinner plenty of turns ago when he had spare mana to play it, just so he was able to get a cheap minion to pair with the Liadrin turn in case his mana wasn't flexible enough to fit in the hero power.
And the really important thing here for Bankyugi is that this is honestly too much pressure to let for your opponent to just go Jiraxis. If he was to play that down here, even with the strongman, like, it just gets a little bit scary. The fragments might be able to help that. But for Alan, if he doesn't go for Jiraxis, I really just don't see a win con. So as scary as it is, it's time to let rip.
Yeah, he has to. It will corrupt the Tigatus as well, which he could only have done with the Twisting Nether at this point, which we know is not actually a Nether. It is a Yogg spell. And then you don't want to play Strongman for 7 mana, so it does have to be Jiraxis here. I agree. It's only 2 cards played with the Strongman as well, so Galloping doesn't proc. It sucks that
So many.
like the 6/6 is obviously just going to get value traded by the Liadrin. But at least Bankyugi only has 2 Librams of Wisdom in hand right now, so from Alan's perspective, he can't just put the web spinner to 6 and then double up on that value and send it on the Liadrin to face.
Wow, he's just going tap? What is he looking for here?
Maybe a cheap spell to proc Oh My Yog. You'd have to assume with this play, Alan was just trying to get the Oh My Yog out of the way so he's able to nether the very next turn. The plan was to look for something cheaper like a Drain Soul or a Soul Shear so that the cascading would go off this turn and then there's the next board, but it is a very bad outcome.
Yeah, disastrous outcome. Like, honestly, I was kind of interested in 8 mana spell just to see what happens. Like, maybe you get Tidal Wave. I don't know. I guess there's a lot of bad outcomes that could happen there.
Maybe you get Jewel of N'Zoth.
Yeah, exactly. But now Bankyugi just ramping up the pressure again and again. All these Librams of Wisdom are so sick just for more damage, more Penflinger activations.
Yeah, and just not getting baited into playing Libram of Hope. He knows that Nether is still a very real threat. And it's honestly still quite good for Alan next turn. Even if Bankyugi does get all these Librams of Wisdom back in hand, he's only able to play 2 minions per turn max. I guess, and Penflinger, sure.
Honestly, I was kind of interested in just going like double Penflinger on the 2/2 there, just to get another Libram back in hand to push more damage. Either way, the Soulshare plus Sociologist is intriguing, especially as you can actually go Spirit Jailer as well. But that then takes up a board slot. I don't know, I'm just thinking if there's any way you can get away with not going Twisting Nether here, because as decent as it is, you want to actually get board control. Rather than just removing every turn.
Definitely worth consideration, but in the end, Alan decides he just cannot afford to take all this pressure. There's only 1 fragment in the deck at the moment too, so Militia is not that great. I assume he'll just want to hold on to the Spirit Jailer to play the same turn as Militia, so he doesn't have the chance of drawing the fragments before her.
Zixor Prime is a pretty nutty beast to get as well, for what it's worth, off of the Web Weave, especially as you can just buff it right now. Even ignoring the Prime part, it's just really, really good on this turn. You can go Zixor, buff it up, Libram of Hope. It's a powerful turn.
Just trying to see if Penflingers could be used to maybe save more health on the 2/4, but if you're going to play Libram of Hope, it's healing all the way back up so sure. And it is good to get the 8/8 down after he's just seen another. He's also seen both Cascading Disasters. So really the only worry is your charge.
Exactly. You just want to punish them for playing Jiraxxus, Ticketus, Sociologist, any of their big slow minions. I guess less so Sociologist, but more Malagos as well. And this does that very well.
So Bankyugi is still holding off on the Libram of Hope, I guess, in case there is exactly a charge. Because then he'll have the 8/8 stick after that board.
Oh, look at this. The second ticket is found as well. Obviously can't play both of them, even if the other one was corrupted, because it's the Demonic Studies that's making them cost 1 less. But even then, it's an interesting card to find, just to basically delete all of Bankyugi's remaining deck if he gets the time.
Still a decent Militia for Alan. He can get 5, which is the perfect board utilization after the Spirit Jailer comes down. Although, from Bankyugi, very smart to actually leave the minions at breakpoints just above multiples of 3. The 5/7, and of course the horse does that on its own. Makes the Militia as awkward as possible.
What doesn't the horse do on its own?
Come down with less than 3 cards played?
So true. Yeah, man. It's getting a little bit awkward now for Bankyugi. Like, I don't know, he can put a lot of stats on the board each turn, but again, like you said, a ticketus for Alan, a couple of decent draws, and he could just get ahead for the rest of this game, dictate all these trades to the point where maybe Bankyugi isn't able to keep up.
And that's why he is prioritizing putting the 8-8 down this turn instead of playing, say, 5 Flingers to get rid of the Militia, which he could have with all of these Librams. Just not giving Alan the breathing room to go for Ticketus Disruption. And it's kind of at that point where if Alan doesn't get the other Nether or Yasharj, he is just dead. Only 5 fragments in the deck, 4 after this. Oh, I forgot to account for this.
Obviously, that's big. But as it currently stands, if you just play that, you're dead. Even if you go for it on the 9-9, it deletes a lot of, it can delete a few Librams, I suppose. But you need something more, so it has to be either tap or a different option, as we see here from the Mali.
This will, if it draws all the fragments, get him not out of range of lethal on board. There's just 19 on board. And this only gets him to 18.
Is that so?
I think that's all the fragments drawn, so... Oh, if the fragment draws him into exactly Armor Vendor, yeah, that was the out. That was what Alan was looking for. And it was as good of a Hail Mary as any, but Bankyugi already had lethal on board, going to push even more for good measure.
He didn't come here to count, he came here to win. And he does it in style with the Paladin. Big victory to take over the Warlock. Otherwise, we could very possibly have been looking at a repeat 3-0 sweep on the Warlock for Alan, because it would only have been the Priest left over for Bankyugi. But it's a huge loss there for Alan, because not only does he, again, lose the good matchup against the Priest in this instance, he doesn't have a counter queue to the Priest now. The best he has is the Rogue as his one remaining deck if he's able to beat the Paladin here. So looking very, very good for Bankyugi with his Paladin and his Priest left remaining.
And I honestly think this Paladin has a pretty good matchup against the Rogue as well. Like, not as drastic as a lot of the other Paladin matchups, but I wouldn't be sad to see this from the Paladin side, because just the exact thing that Bankyugi did this game is also very effective against Rogue. Just build big minions every turn. Rogue, without the ability to generate Sap or Blackjack Stunner, has a very difficult time. It often feels like they're fishing for exactly devolving missiles from the One Thieves to actually have a way to delete that constant Libram of Wisdom value.
Very, very true. Not a matchup that I enjoy playing as the Miracle Rogue. I will admit that, like, when I'm playing against Paladin on ladder, it's not so much the case anymore now that Crab Rider has been nerfed, but beforehand, when both Libram Paladin and Aggro Paladin were a thing, I would mulligan very aggressively for removal, just looking for Prize Plunderer, obviously Octobots, but Brain Freeze as well, just because you had to clear their board at the start or you lost. And then if you matched up into Libram Paladin, you just have a bunch of removal kind of stranded in hand, and you want more value in that matchup. When you know that you're against Libram Paladin, I think you have the ability to just go for Field Contact, Octobot, maybe even like Swindle in your starting hand as well, to make sure that you have plenty of card draw come the mid-game. But either way, you are still, I think, looking for a nice big wide board at the start. Pray there's no Samuro to clear it off, and that's often your best chance at victory.
Yeah, it's also just a big deal that you have more leeway to go Kazakus in that matchup. I find that's often the win condition for Miracle Rogue if you get the good golems early. That often comes down to either challenge or the turn before Aldor Truthseeker. And if you hit Rush or Deal 3, that can match up very nicely into Paladin's ideal play for that turn. There's also Cult Neophytes in there, which can make certain turns awkward if the Paladin does have that kind of hand where they're trying to milk the value from the Librams of Wisdom. You can often just shut down like a good Penflinger turn from that situation. I will say though that Bankyugi has demonstrated not like straight up mastery, just very, very good play on this Libram Paladin. It's been honestly just a treat to watch him from last week until this week pilot the deck that nobody else in APAC was bringing in whatever matchups it was, because he did just sweep with it last week as well. And then against the Warlock, that was so good, like hitting the right breakpoints on the health on his minions, and also just the timing of when to go in on the board and never giving Alan time to do what he wanted wanted, which was either Jiraxis or Twisting Nether. At the same time, he didn't play too hard into Twisting Nether, such that if it did come down, he still had ways to refill the turn after. And while that's not the same philosophy of how you approach the Rogue matchup, I think his experience on the deck will still be very useful here.
Right, exactly. It was the secret timing was very, very clever, because even though I was saying you want to save the Oh My Yog into turn 8, what I failed to consider, as I always seem to do, is you don't have to play Oh My Yog into turn 8. You have to play a secret, any secret into turn 8, and they will treat it as if it is, because a lot of the time it's just you don't have the ability to play around it, or you have to in that instance. But for Alan here, right out the gate, does have himself a pretty nice looking hand. Octobot, a bunch of nice cards to discount. The early game, I think, is going to be very decidedly in the Rogue's favor. But Bankyugi, already with Blademaster Samuro, kind of has the answer to that.
He does, and he has first day of school for ways to fill out his turn 2 and turn 3. Cariel can be a pseudo Libram discounter for at least the wisdom in hand. And so it could get to a point where Bankyugi, if he's not under that much pressure early, can even buff the Samuro for a bigger board clear. For now, Alan can just coin the Octobot though, and it's very likely to get an activation, if not guaranteed, right? Because there's no conviction in this list.
Yeah, this is the one time where it's guaranteed to go off. If you do it next turn, you're obviously looking at a Dahl into a Dahl or a Dahl into Libram of Wisdom, very importantly against Libram Paladin specifically. And it's just good. The rest of his hand works out. He has a combo activator with Neophyte, and then the rest of his hand either draws or clears very well.
Abusive is almost so good here.
Oh, true.
Not quite enough. Still, gladly take the Vulpertinger though, and the Gibberling might be a bit useful later if he does get those Libram of Wisdom hands, but it's all in the faraway future, because right now Bankyugi is staring at a huge problem that he has to respect. And Alan can get the ball rolling now. Cult Neophyte, Swindle.
Sounds good to me. You could argue that it's Cult Neophyte Wand Thief just to get another minion in play instead. You could argue it's just Dagger to play around any minions being in play if you don't want to go Prize Plunderer this early. But I think I would probably settle on like Neophyte Wand Thief Prize Plunderer, actually, just to clear the board and go super wide yourself.
Yeah, that's quite powerful. It could still be Prize Plunderer with the Swindle turn, to be fair.
True, yeah.
With the Swindle, I'm particularly looking for a good way to follow up this curve, like Mankrik or Kazakus in the near future. But if it's specifically Kazakus and not Mankrik, then you're fine to Swindle the next turn as well. Alan debating whether it's worth this last piece of removal. Again, the minions do get bigger, but there is value to denying buffs. I guess the Neophyte somewhat does that, but the breakpoints are a bit weird because Hand of a Doll is still potentially playable here.
Yeah, it just clears off a fair bit of damage. Personally, I just find in the matchup, I like being liberal with my Prize Plunderers. I appreciate that they can kill off the Aldor Truth Seekers, the Librams of Hope later on. But just going wide at the start before they can go for Samuro often feels fairly potent.
Now the Swindle becomes a little bit more difficult to activate, so it looks like Alan's actually going to take an Entity turn here. And he can still play the Plunderer, but if he was that precious about holding onto it last turn, you'd have to imagine he would trade the Wand Thief instead.
You'd think so. It's interesting just to think about how Samuro interacts with this turn, because if you go Prize Plunderer in addition to the Mirror Entity, it's very bad against Samuro. You get a 1-6 or a 1-5, I suppose, after the trade, which is not very powerful. But if you don't go for that, then it doesn't really bait them into going for the Samuro, so maybe they go for something else and you get a better minion. It's hard to pass through.
In the end, going for the Dagger to deny any more buffs. The Entity, granted, was also just not that good because he knows there's 2 more 1-cost cards in hand from the first day of school. But it's now just the best combo activator because I'm sure he has bigger plans for Tenwu than just being played on a Wand Thief.
Yeah, and it's also just not a bad turn, because even though they have the 1-drops, Talan or the Aldor Truthseeker are very, very likely plays here. So I think it's well timed here for Alan, even if it meant just going for dagger on the previous turn. And while this is all a little slow, hasn't got a bunch of damage in at the start, he hasn't fallen behind, which is very important. And can still try and set up for that Tenwu Shadow Step and then Alexstrasza later on for a big swing.
Also trying to hold on to this Brain Freeze in case of emergency. Using Prize Plunderer there, and the weapons swing also just develops a 2-1, so I think it's fine.
Wait to read these.
Pretty sick use of this gibbling as well, it's got to be said. With Libram of Wisdom. Can't sacrifice it off to play it again, but I think that's still just fine with the hero power.
However, it's also a pretty good gibberling for Alan, because Bankyugi just can't kill the Spell Burst one. So, are we just in a Token Druid mirror now?
It looks that way. Oh, Neophyte, that's the nuts against Druid. Slam that down.
Okay, well, obviously, Alan just a bit worried about Galloping Savior primarily here. I don't think the Oh My Yogg is that big of a problem. He has plenty of ways to test.
Yeah, you just don't want to be throwing in the Secret Passage into the Yogg, and I think you are all good.
Probably more valuable to test with Shadow Step, because it's not a disaster if it doesn't go off, whereas I think Alan's priority should be being able to get rid of all the minions. Okay, Sigil of Silence is
That's sick.
Good.
Yeah.
Because Bankyugi wanted to play Talon most likely the next turn. Or Samuro.
Yeah, very, very good. I think I actually agree with going for the Brain Freeze first. He can still clear off a lot of this board, and getting another spell here, there's some pretty good ones that you can hit, right?
That's fair. With the Penflinger turn, he can just clear, but it takes some trades, but it's alright.
Yeah. Needs to move pretty quickly now. Fireball, oh yes, against Paladin.
Yeah. Okay, holding off at the Flinger there. Honestly, I was looking at Flo just to be able to play one more Penflinger turn and get the full board clear.
Oh,
he just
right,
has
okay.
Sigil of Silence now, so this is really good. The Gibberling cannot actually trade itself on this board, which means that the Libram of Wisdom on it is going to get silenced away.
That is very, very cool. I am rapidly Googling Abusive Sergeant to see if it can target enemy minions. It does just say Battlecry, give a minion +2 attack, so he could buff an opposing minion and then sacrifice off the Gibberling.
That's pretty sick.
I think it's
that's
kind of
worth
good.
it.
Yeah.
I think it's super worth it. He has Penflinger in hand. And he could still Samuro at the end to clear everything. Maybe it's just not worth Samuro at that point.
Yeah.
He could also just Penflinger his own guy. But then you lose the Penflinger.
Boo.
Oh wait, you can Penflinger your own guy, hero power, and then put the but then you still lose the Libram.
You still lose it, yeah.
Yeah, it had to be. You're right.
Put the Libram on an opposing minion and say, hold this for later, and then I'll get back. No.
Well.
Damn, just loses it straight up. Very cool play by Alan. Very, very cool.
And also, the spell burst Gibberling is just alive? Wait.
Yeah, true.
You wanted to trade the One Thief instead of that? Not really worth it.
I mean, I was going to say you could argue that the spell burst is bad, but then if it's bad, Alan just trades it away anyway. So there's no potential downside.
Unless he's going for the think your opponent is dumb line of play where he just locks himself out of board, but I don't think Bankyugi is that type of player. More likely he's just saying he's more scared of the threat of shadow stepping the One Thief in any way, and these Gibberlings can't really be buffed from Rogue, so Samuro cleans up either way.
Snap Pit counterspell here as well is interesting. It's still not in time for... Oh, sorry, Libram of Hope wouldn't be able to come down on this turn, I don't believe, right? Because it's only one attendant that's been played this game. But even so, I guess it could have been cheapened by the Carriel that was played earlier, so it's possible here that a Libram of Hope is played that he could counterspell.
bit ambitious, but honestly, if it deletes any spell from Bankyugi, you're still kind of happy, whether it is just another Libram of Wisdom or even first day of school, because Bankyugi's quite quickly running out of stuff. So that's just both Librams deleted now. One
Just
from a
gone.
counterspell and one from Sigil of Silence. That's insane. Of course, Bankyugi can still regenerate a couple from the Adrin, but that's not in hand. He'll get it off of the Talon, but is that too late?
Yeah, I mean, straight up, I think that Alan has just kind of outplayed him in this mid-game. Bankyugi had the opportunity to go with a slightly different line and get back his own... could have got back his own Libram of Wisdom earlier on that maybe could have given him a better chance in this mid-game, but for the moment, Alan is just miles ahead on the board. Plenty of value thanks to the second secret passage still to come, and plenty of burn as well. Fireball in hand, still 2 wicked stabs as well. This is looking great for him.
Yeah, he's just very far in the lead, even though Bankyugi has that Samuro Sergeant combo, which I suppose is the big reasoning behind holding on to the Sergeant instead of regenerating his Libram. Again, I still don't like the play because if you had the Libram in hand, that's a way to buff Samuro as well. It's like 1 less attack, but rogue breakpoints of health are generally 2 and not 3 anyway. So yes, the Samuro can deal with this board, but it's so little pressure and Alan is nowhere near short on value.
Yeah, it's a cool play to hold on to the Abusive Sergeant to clear the board. It makes a huge difference in terms of the amount of damage cleared. Obviously, you know, we were criticizing Bankyugi for not using the Abusive Sergeant earlier, but if it was holding on for specifically this purpose, then I can understand.
That's what I just said, Derek. Like, it's better to get the Libram back in hand because it would buff the Samuro anyway, and the rogue health breakpoints are generally 2 and not 3.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
You gotta stop reading Soto's comments on Discord while we're casting.
I'm just trying to be nice to Bankyugi here. I mean, it kind of made sense, but yeah.
And the stealth off the Jandis is absolutely backbreaking. Without the use of Samuro anymore, he can't just Libram of Justice it away. So Alan's getting essentially both the 5 drops for full value here. Okay, these are good 1 drops though. He can keep cycling.
Mm-hmm. It's pretty good. But he basically just needs the Librams of Hope at this point to really have any chance whatsoever. That allows him to thin his deck, which is nice. Babbling Book for card draw would be huge here. Removal, that's kind of card draw, but I don't see that ever going off.
He is just dead to 2 minions going face plus fireball. I guess Alan has to respect Oh My Yogg a little bit. Currently, the only way he has of testing it might just be bad for him because the secret passage deletes the fireball, but we'll see if he gets a spell. Oh, also he can just Vanessa for a secret to test.
That's true. That mana would work out. Yeah, that would have been a pretty cute lethal to see.
But also just swindle now.
Yeah, no matter how you want to do it. I guess this...
stuff.
Oh no, yeah, this was better. I was going to say you're afraid of Shadow Council, but that's 1 mana, right? Is the one way that could have gone wrong. So you do want to test with the 2 mana if possible, slightly optimized, whether or not Alan was thinking about that. But there we go. Game 5 on the table now, Gia. The Paladin dealt with by the Rogue, a matchup that we were anticipating would be decent for the Rogue, but not quite so good as against the N'Zoth Paladins of prior. And the final deck, the defining strategy of Alan's overall lineup this week is leaving up Priest, and it just needs to get 1 win for Bankyugi against Rogue. A matchup that is close, but I think when piloted well by the Priest, they do just still about have the edge.
Yeah, it's close, but not always, Cigar. I mean, it's not impossible for Rogue, but obviously this is not the pan out that Alan was hoping for. By leaving a Priest, he very much expected to have either his Mage or his Warlock to still play with and have a decent queue into that. But it just so happened that the Mage getting kicked out early enough and then Alan being forced onto the Warlock somewhat to get that matchup done now has the Priest left in a relatively safe position. And the build from Bankyugi is pretty standard. We're seeing Raised Deads and Sethic Sethek in there over Desperate Prayer, which I'm a fan of. The one of Ogremaster. Back and forth on whether I think this is actually good against Rogue, because a lot of the time you play that and they happily play a Golem into it or Jandis and then it feels a bit slow, but definitely not going to hurt him too much overall.
Yeah, if you can lock down that board at the start and then follow it up with Ogremantzer, it's like the umbrella that protects the rest of your minions from all the removal spells that Rogue is trying to levy towards them. The rest of it, just fairly standard stuff. Obviously, there's an insight, 2 insights in there, which are not seen in all the lists anymore, but pretty much just standard control priest that you would have seen from a couple weeks ago before we started seeing some of the tech with N'Zoth, the Giants. There's a few different ways you can go with priest now, but very old school, very standard from Bankyugi, and I'm expecting, as I always like to say, just full development at the start, getting the Scorpids, Wand Makers, Setheks down, regenerating them over and over, and making it so Rogue has to spend all their mana just clearing the board before they can even get their own minions in play and start pushing damage.
And while Rogue does have some form of reach available, if they're able to discount Alexstrasza and Tenwu, the classic combo, Priest can play around that in many ways. One, Illusia is the big one. If you've seen them just set up completely with Octobot, then you can have a very solid read on there being cheap Wicked Stabs or Tenwu that they can dump from the hand. And the other is just being at a safe enough health total, because a lot of the time Rogue can't deal 30-0 in one turn. The breakpoint is usually around 22, I find. It's like 2 Alexes and a Wicked Stab. Otherwise, the mana is really difficult to maneuver if you don't get the big discounts. Of course, it can change. It can go up to 24 if you get 3 Alex in a turn. But Bankyugi will be very aware of those breakpoints.
I mean, already for Alan, we have for me what is one of the most difficult decisions to make as Rogue against Priest. It's Tenwu and Shadow Step, because so often I'm presented with brilliant opportunities to use Tenwu to bounce a minion, Shadow Step to Tenwu back to my hand, and just hold it. Because if you can keep it for Alexstrasza, you don't need any discount from Octobot, guaranteed 16 damage later on. But then if they have Illusia, you are effectively conceding the game, because they can play Illusia, play a bunch of cards, and then with 1 mana left over, Tenwu and replay their Illusia, so you don't even get to work with their hand. I'll be keeping a close eye on if Alan is going to be going for that game plan in this matchup, or if he just throws it down liberally and leaves it on the board, saving the Shadow Step for another time.
Definitely tough for the Rogue to identify which use of Tenwu is better. Sometimes even on Jandis or Kazakus Golem is warranted in this matchup. But for right now, barring the long-term game plan, the Penflinger is actually a decent pickup here, if only to activate the Swindle in a way that Alan doesn't want to throw away any of his other resources to do so. He is just going to play it out to get rid of the Wand Thief, so he's saying, I don't need Penflinger to potentially come back into my hand many times in this matchup. I'm honestly a bit surprised by that. Like, I was looking more at getting the Swindle and the Swindle out and the Penflinger back in hand, even if the Cult Neophyte would die to the Wand Thief.
I think I kind of like it. Like, it's not going to do that much, in my opinion, in the matchup. If you're just going for it over and over again, like, maybe you can spend your mana to get multiple procs of the field contact, but generally I find in this matchup you're never starved of ways to spend your mana.
Fair. It's really more about the field contact, I was thinking, just to get cheap battle cries to go along with it, because the Penflinger does take the place of the Guardian Og Merchant. But it definitely accomplished a huge deal here, because Bankyugi had to coin out Samuro to actually get rid of the Octobot there. That's a big resource in terms of potential healing and board clear later on. Bankyugi does have Zyrella and Raised Deads though, so I think he was fine throwing out a Samuro relatively early. The big problem is he doesn't have a way to one-shot the Octobot right now.
Yeah, I think he's pretty much banking on the fact that he can get back this Samuro later on, because it's, I mean, it hasn't died yet, of course. Don't want to make the Samuro too afraid of what's about to happen. But he can pretty much guarantee get it back with the Raised Dead later on. And then as soon as you find a single buff off of Sethek, off of the palm readings from his deck, Alan is just never going to stick aboard. Samuro is a nightmare for the Rogue in this matchup. Feast, there we go.
Yeah, that's at least a way to finish the turn. Although, you might want to save it for Sethek, potentially. And Kyugi's just going to see what's in the box first and then evaluates. I kind of like the Feast though. It makes the Samuro just stickier. It heals so much. And yes, you give the Octobot activation, but it at least puts a significant threat on the board.
I guess, yeah. I don't know. I kind of wanted to hold on to it to go with the second Samuro after you raise dead it so you can play it again. Like, have it. I guess with Zyrella in hand, there's a lot of board clears in the deck. Maybe I'm still in the Paladin mindset. But either way, the fact that he went for the bump here first is a big deal. It means that we can't see the play of Secret Passage and then bump in to reduce all the cards you get. You simply have to work with their original mana cost. But here for Alan, he gets himself a reasonable enough hand, damages a Samuro a lot, gets a bunch of minions in play. It's a good turn.
Yeah, he essentially just deletes cards in his deck that aren't field contact, so he can get them
right.
the field contact a bit more consistently, and that's really the one that he wants to pop off with. If not that, then Kazakus or Jandis as well. This turn for Bankyugi is a little bit awkward because, again, the AoE is just out of reach. Zyrella plus Hero Power are too expensive, but it's fine to just develop, right? He's not under that much pressure. It's only going to get the 1/1 maker, but it gets the Mage Scribe activation and a 4/9 on board, which is much more valuable than trying to milk the value from the raised dead.
Ooh, this is getting spicy. Big minion in play. Palm Readings is very nice, but Jandis on the other side with a Shadow Step into Jandis. Tenwu Jandis next turn. This is so much pressure available to Alan now.
Yeah. And he is going to step here. For now, not valuing step on the Tenwu, of course, because it's already gotten the discount. Just trying to make sure he has threats to chain because he is expecting a board clear of some sort this turn. We now have Samuro guaranteed in the raised dead pool alongside the other one maker. But no good way to buff it currently.
Yeah, I am pretty interested in just playing the raised dead preemptively here and looking for then any kind of buff afterwards. Power Word Fortitude.
Ooh, I like the wave just to stay alive this turn. It's a lot of it's a lot of pressure, right? He can't actually clear anything this turn.
No, that's a very good point. He is under a lot of threat right now.
Is the Fortitude playable this turn? If he gets it, there will be 6 spells in hand.
I mean, I didn't even especially want it to play now. It was just to go with the go with the Samuro next turn.
Oh, that's fair. Yeah.
Alex for heal.
Yep. Even wave to save like 4 health on your Mage Scribe here, and also make the Foxy Frog less threatening, I think is super worth it.
No, I agree. That sounds smart to me.
Oh, Alan reacting at the raised dead there at the last minute, knowing that there's another Samuro that will check most of the Jandis turn as well.
Yeah, it's so brutal, right? Going for double Jandis here. Even if there's no buff, you know for a fact that half of them are just straight up dead. But even then, he doesn't see anything better. Double Burning Blade Acolyte, though? Hello?
Oh no!
Samuro is garbage!
It is! And because there's second Jandis, he can't really get away with not Samuro and Moonfang! Moonfang! These Jandises. I have no words.
I think Bankyugi might have 1 or 2 words, but they're not safe for broadcast. Oh my goodness.
He was fishing for more healing with Zyrella, you'd have to imagine, but the Zyrella doesn't really do much. It just adds more on board, or more power on board. The fact that he can't go Zyrella and Samuro the whole same turn means that he's either threatened by this first layer of minions, Moonfang and Vol'jin, or the second layer, the 5/8s that pop out of these 1/1s. That's...
You don't pick the one.
It's just another wave is out here? Okay, Flash Heal Zyrella.
Ooh.
So he can trade 1 down, right? With the 1/1s. Then Flash Heal Zyrella. That will leave a 5/8 and a Moonfang.
Yeah.
It's a lot, but...
It's a lot.
He's got...
I mean, the fact that Alan has any damage on board here at all is a massive high roll. He cannot be that upset. But obviously seeing Zyrella at all is pretty brutal. Field contact off the top, though. I like the look of that. Let's turbo draw through this deck, find Alex Straza, and try and get there with the burn plan.
Getting so scary for Bankyugi now. He has let her rip on one of the best AoEs in Zyrella. There's still the Samuro, but nothing to go along with it at the moment. If he can find Apotheosis, though, off the top, we could be talking something completely different. Deep Freeze?
Yeah. It's bad, but so are the others. Alex Straza for next turn. Okay, we're talking.
Neophyte. Oh.
Rain Freeze as well. These are just the perfect cards, one after the other.
Yeah, it's a full clear. Well, it's one freeze. Essentially a full clear. We can stop Neophyte as well. Just make things as awkward as possible for Bankyugi.
I kind of like saving the step. You can just do it on Alex Straza next turn, right? You just go Alex Straza step.
But if he steps this Neophyte, then Bankyugi's Apotheosis costs 5, so it can't be played with Samuro.
True.
Which is like Bankyugi's best out here.
I'm on board, and I think if it couldn't have been timed more perfectly, that was Apotheosis off the top for Bankyugi.
Was it? I'm not seeing the card.
Yeah, I mean, the storyline was built up, but the spectator issue is really harsh in my vibe here.
No! I mean, if it is Apo, or whether it was or not, Alan's play locked out any hope Bankyugi had of coming back into this. Alan knows 100% that there's a Samuro in hand because of that raise dead that was played a couple turns ago. So the step Neophyte, I think, was super heads up here. He does have Alex for even more burn if this somehow does get cleared by some combination of Condemn and stuff, but it's just not there.
Yeah, again, apologies, spectator issues fixed as soon as possible. But if my eagle vision is as well attuned as I think it is, that looked a lot like an Apotheosis off the top. And if it was, either way, Bankyugi just thinking Alex Straza is the only way to go. Oh my god, it was the Apotheosis. So Alan with the step at the end there. If he hadn't done that, he was kind of just losing this game. That one single play was the play that kept him in this game, won him the series, and look at what it means to him. A huge win to go through to the semifinals. He is pumped.
Alan popping off. I'm sorry I ever called him a villain. I mean, you love to see that type of dedication and caring about the game. Like Sodal was talking about how A-Rock was so invested in it. I think we have plenty of players like A-Rock in terms of their attitude towards the game in APAC as well. And for Bankyugi, you see how devastating that loss was. It's not that he's in any danger of relegation, but he wants to cement himself as one of the best because he did go straight through to Worlds last year in the first season. And he had, I think, a very good overall game plan here. He did the best he could to survive. There were pretty unfortunate Jandice outcomes that allowed this Zyrella to be not that great, but it is Alan's time to shine at the moment. Everything from the Warlock gameplay all the way to taking down the Unfavorable. That was just such a banger of a series.
It really was. You know, commiserations to Bankyugi. I think he gave it